My dear Wormwood, I note with great displeasure that the enemy has, for the time being, put a forcible end to your direct attacks on the patient's chastity. You ought to have known that he always does in the end, and you ought to have stopped before you reached the stage. For as things are, your man has discovered that dangerous truth, that these attacks won't last forever. Consequently, you cannot use again what is, after all, our best weapon, the belief of ignorant humans, that there is no hope of getting rid of us except by yielding. I suppose you have tried persuading him that chastity is unhealthy. I haven't yet got a report from you on the young women in the neighborhood. Should like it at once, for if we can't use his sexuality to make him unchaste, he must try to use it for the promotion of a desirable marriage. In the meantime, I would like to give you some hint about the type of woman, I mean, the physical type, which he should be encouraged to fall in love with, if falling in love is the best we can manage. In a rough and ready way, of course, this question is decided for us by spirits far deeper down in the hierarchy than you and I. It is the business of these great masters to produce in every age a general misdirection of what may be called sexual taste. This they do by working through the small circle of popular artists, dressmakers, actresses, and advertisers, who determine the fashionable type. The aim is to guide each sex away from those members of the other, with whom spirituality, helpfulness, happy and fertile marriages are most likely. Thus, we have now made for many centuries triumph over nature to the extent of making certain secondary characteristics of the male, such as a beard, disagreeable to nearly all females, and there is more in that than you might suppose. As regards to the male taste, we have varied a good deal. One time we have directed it to the statuesque and aristocratic type of beauty, mixing male vanity with their desires, and encouraged the race to breed chiefly from the most arrogant and prodigal women. At another, we have selected an exaggerated female type, faint and lavishing, so that folly and cowardice, and all the general falseness and littleness of the mind, which go with them shall be a premium. At present we are on the opposite track. The age of jazz has succeeded the age of the waltz, and now we teach men to like women whose bodies are scarcely distinguishable from those of boys. Since this is a type of beauty even more transitory than most, we thus aggravate the female's chronic horror of growing old, with many excellent results, and render her less willing, and less able to bear children. And that's not all, we have engineered a great increase in the license which society allows to the representation of the apparent nude, not the real nude in art, and its exhibition on the stage or the bathing beaches. It is all a fake, of course, that figures in the popular art are falsely drawn. The real women in bathing suits, or tights, are actually pinched in, and propped up, to make them appear firmer, and more slender, and more boyish, than the then nature allows a full-grown woman to be. Yet at the same time, the modern world is taught to believe that it is being frank and healthy to get back to nature. As a result, we are more and more directing the desires men to something that does not exist, making the role of the I in sexuality more and more important, and at the same time, making its demand more and more impossible. What follows you can easily forecast. This is the general strategy of the moment. But, inside the framework, you will still find it possible to encourage your patient's desire in one of two directions. You will find, if you look carefully into the human heart, that he is haunted by at least two imaginary women, a terrestrial and infernal Venus, and that he desires different quantitative according to its object. There is one type for which his desire is such as to be naturally amenable to the enemy, readily mixed with charity, readily obedient to marriage, colored all through that with a golden light of reverence and naturalness which we detest. There is another type which he desires brutally, and desires to desire brutally, a type best used to draw him away from marriage altogether, but which, even within marriage, he would tend to treat as a slave, an idol, or an accomplice. His love for the first might involve what the enemy calls evil, but only accidentally, the man would wish that she was not someone else's wife, and to be sorry that he could not love her lawfully. But, in the second type, they felt evil is what he wants, it is that tang, in the flavor which he is after. In the face, it is visible animality, or sulkiness, or craft, or cruelty which he likes, and, in the body, something quite different from what he ordinarily calls beauty, something he may even, in the same hour, describe as ugliness, but which, by our art, we can make a play on the raw nerve of his private obsession. The real use of the Inferno Venus is, no doubt, to prostitute or mistress. But, if your man is a Christian, and if he has been well trained in nonsense about irresistibility, and all-excusing love, he can often be induced to marry her. And that is very well worth bringing about. You will have failed as regards fornication and solitary vice, but there are other, and more indirect methods, of using a man's sexuality to his own undoing, and, by the way, there are not only efficient, but delightful, and the unhappiness produced is very lasting and the exquisite type. Your affectionate uncle, Screwtape.